Chapter 3. The Library. The next morning, Lucio woke up before his alarm clock rang. For a moment, he couldn't remember what day it was. Then he saw his closed notebook on the table beside his bed. It was Friday, and he had promised to meet Eva in the library after English class. He jumped out of bed. His mother had already left for work. Lucio liked it when the house was empty. He quickly ate breakfast, then checked his hair in the bathroom mirror. "You really need a haircut," he said to himself. He went back into his bedroom and put his books into his school bag. Then something strange happened. He found himself opening the drawer and taking out the little blue bag with the pendant inside. Something was moving his hand, and he couldn't stop it. He felt his hand put the bag in his trouser pocket, and when he tried to take it out, his hand would not move. "That's strange," he thought. "Maybe I'm just sleepy." Lucio was the first person at English class that Friday morning. He watched Eva as she walked into the class. She always walked so slowly, she always seemed so happy, and she always looked so beautiful. Mrs. Murphy, the English teacher, arrived. She liked Lucio because he liked English. If she needed an example and nobody could think of one, she asked him. Today was no different from any other day. "Okay, listen please. In our last class we looked at second conditional sentences. Let's practice. If you were an animal, what animal would you be?" Mrs. Murphy asked the class. Nobody answered. "Lucio, any ideas?" Without thinking, Lucio answered, "A jaguar." "If I were an animal, I would be a jaguar." "Perfect. Thank you, Lucio. Now, can someone else give me an example?" Lucio finished every activity as quickly as he could. Maybe that way the time would pass more quickly. But it didn't. English class passed very slowly that day, and all he could think about was his meeting with Eva Villa in the library. Finally, Mrs. Murphy told them what their homework was, and class was over. Lucio stood up immediately and walked to Eva's desk. "Hello," he said. "Hello," replied Eva. "I'll see you in the library in 5 minutes." Lucio walked across the grass between the English classroom and the library building. He was angry with himself because the evening before he had fallen asleep when he was doing the mind map. He had wanted to show Eva that he wasn't as useless as she probably thought. At least he could book a computer for them to use. He walked into the library and stood nervously in front of the librarian. "I'd like to use the internet, please," he told the librarian. "Can you tell me your name?" the librarian asked. "Lucio Valdez. I am going to share the computer with Eva Villa." Lucio felt warm inside when he said Eva's name. He looked at his watch. More than 5 minutes had passed. Maybe Eva wasn't coming. He looked at his watch again, and when he looked up, she was standing next to him. He turned red. He hoped she couldn't see that he was nervous. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "That's okay," replied Lucio. "I have already asked for a computer." "It's number 16, said the librarian. Lucio sat down next to Eva in front of the computer. "I started a mind map, but I couldn't think of anything to write, except guaca," he explained. "That's why we're here," Eva answered. "To find out more information." Eva was always so calm. He felt good sitting next to her. "I think we should start with the Kogi," she continued. "Yesterday Mr. Parra explained that the Kogi are a tribe of people who live in the Sierra Nevada, and that their ancestors made a lot of the gold guaca that is now in museums around the world." Eva typed Kogi and pressed Enter. Lucio looked hard at the computer screen, but he really wanted to look at Eva. Soon Eva had found the web page she was looking for. "Okay." Eva started reading. "The Sierra Nevada mountains are home to the Kogi tribe. The ancestors of the Kogi were the brave Tyrona, who fought for many, many years against the Spanish, she continued. Like their ancestors, the Kogi still make things from gold. Should I write this down? Asked Lucio. Of course, or we will forget it, Eva answered. Lucio took his notebook and a pen out of his bag. Eva continued reading. The Kogi, she said, believe that the jaguar looks after the sun, and that the sun gives life to everything. The Kogi name for a jaguar is Neptashi. Lucio put his notebook on the table next to the computer and looked at the screen, where there was a photograph of a Kogi chief. The chief was wearing a jaguar skin, and he had jaguar teeth on a piece of gold string round his neck. He seemed to be looking straight at Lucio from the screen. Lucio remembered the pendant in his pocket. The jaguar looked out from the pendant in the same way. Maybe he should show Eva the pendant. What are you waiting for, Lucio? Write these things on your mind map, Eva said. It was the first time Eva had said his name. It sounded good when she said it. He opened his notebook and turned to the page where he had drawn his mind map. But when he saw what had happened, he almost fell off his chair. Eva, something's wrong, Lucio shouted. Shh, said Eva. We're in the library. The mind map has changed, Eva. Look. He showed her the mind map. There were words now in the 4 circles he had drawn with the pendant. The words were Neptashi, Hotel Continental, Esmeralda, and Ichua. I don't even write like that, Eva. Lucio, said Eva, this is not the time for silly jokes. We don't have much time before the next class. Eva, I promise, all I did last night was to draw the circles and the lines and write guaca in the center circle. Something amazing has happened. Eva stood up. I'm sorry, Lucio. Her voice was very serious now. I don't think you're a bad person, but you are a little strange. I will do the mind map alone. You can tell your story to Mr. Parra on Monday. Eva walked out of the library. Lucio didn't know what to think. How had the words appeared on the mind map? Something strange, something very strange was happening. Quickly, he typed Ichua into the computer, but couldn't find any information. He now knew that Neptashi meant jaguar, and Esmeralda was his grandmother's name. He looked for information about the Hotel Continental, but could only find pages about hotels in places he had never heard of. I must show Eva that I'm not lying, he said to himself, as he put his notebook and pen into his bag and stood up. Suddenly, he sat down again. Big red letters had started to appear on the computer screen, and slowly the letters became words. 3 words. Take it back. Lucio could not believe his eyes. He had to find Eva.